Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast and happy Valentines to all of the listeners. We're so excited for this special day. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. And we have a special treat for you all. Today, we are talking about one of the most popular Hallmark movies. We're talking about All of My Heart, and it was actually a countdown to Valentine's Day movie. So perfect to talk about. And I have a special guest with me today. I have Jonathan Decker here with me from Cinema Therapy. He's a licensed therapist. And Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so we've actually known each other for quite a while.
Yeah.
Years and years ago, we wrote for the same local magazine.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
So
Man, that was forever ago.
Yeah.
Welcome to Jurassic Park. Yeah.
Yeah, it really was. I know. I was looking over some of our old conversations, and we were talking about, you had written a review of Wonder Woman and it gotten ridiculous responses, and I was just thinking, wow, that feels like a lifetime ago. It's really crazy.
Does. But the internet is still the same.
Yes, it really is, if not worse.
Yes.
Yes. But you have this cinema therapy channel, and it's just gone gangbusters. Amazing. Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
That's very exciting.
We're trying to help people while geeking out. And that's a perfect life, in my opinion.
Yeah, and this Christmas, for some reason, I noticed for some, it's like, oh, they've done a lot of rom-coms on here, so maybe Jonathan would like to come on the podcast.
Yeah, here I am.
Why don't you, for people that are new, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your channel and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a licensed therapist, and my buddy, my college roommate from way back when, is a professional filmmaker. And so we explore the psychology of your favorite film characters. We use movies as a jump-off point to talk about healthy relationship skills, mental health, and emotional health skills.
Mm-hmm.
And we take topics seriously, but we don't take ourselves seriously.
Yeah.
And so I like to describe it as Siskel and Ebert meets Mr. Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's
yeah.
We've been up and running for almost 4 years and doing pretty well for ourselves.
Yeah.
Reaching a lot of people, having a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think about rom-coms in general? Do you think they get a bum rap? Do you think that, or are they pretty problematic in your eyes?
I think you have to approach rom-coms the way you watch action movies, which is, I'm looking to escape reality and get swept up in this. That doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to try everything I'm watching.
Right. That's a good comparison.
And I think Hallmarkies is cool because I think, generally speaking, Hallmark rom-coms are less problematic. But I look at rom-coms, they don't necessarily live by the rules of reality the same way James Bond can outrun machine gun fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in rom-coms, there's often a wedding that needs to be broken up. There's always a last-minute confession. There's usually a guy who's a total jerk who's changed by the power of love, and another guy who's already a good guy, but that makes him boring, and things like that. Where in real life, I'm like, no, if someone possesses integrity and decency, that's already attractive, And a lot of people who are rough around the edges don't necessarily change by the magic power of love. That I like to say in therapy, if he hasn't changed for himself, what makes you think he's going to change for you?
Well, we'll talk a lot about that with this movie, because that is it.
But that said, I'm not hypercritical, because
Mm-hmm.
I think the only issue with we were just talking about Madam Web before we started rolling. You were telling me about it, how they have Pepsi product placement everywhere, right?
Yes.
And the reason people say, well, the media we watch doesn't affect us, and I'm like, if that were true, companies wouldn't pay billions of dollars for product placement, cumulatively.
Right.
And so obviously what we watch affects us. It doesn't mean it determines what we do, but I say watch what you enjoy with your brain turned on, right?
Yes.
And so I don't think there's any problem enjoying something if you can say, okay, here's reality and here's what's on screen. Right.
Yeah.
And that's part of what we do on our show, is we're not trying to tear things down. Sometimes we say, this is a wonderful example of, and in real life, it would look a lot like this, except for it would take place over a couple of years instead of 2 hours. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we're saying, look, enjoy this. but don't model your life after
Yeah.
it.
That's a really good way to describe it because I hate that phrase, turn your brain off. I hate that because that's
Yeah,
assuming that there is no engagement required for blockbuster entertainment
right.
for entertainment in general, that we don't have to think about it at all, which I don't like that.
Right. I do think there are blockbuster entertainment where your brain should be on, but maybe in hibernation mode, but that's not the same thing as
Yeah.
off.
Well, and I think that it's okay to say this is stupid, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, you're right. And just to own that,
Yeah.
you don't have to defend it, to be like,
Yeah.
we all have those things. So for sure.
Yes. Yes. Uh, well, do you have like, would you say both a favorite rom-com and maybe a favorite rom-com that you've done on the show?
Yeah, well, we just had an episode drop today. I guess today we're filming. Tomorrow when this goes live, it'll have dropped the day before on Cinema Therapy, where we're ranking 90s rom-coms.
Mm-hmm.
And we're ranking the relationships for least healthy to most healthy.
Mm.
And so we covered Pretty Woman and Never Been Kissed and Sleepless in Seattle and While You Were Sleeping and Clueless are the ones that we look at.
Oh, I'll
And
be very
so,
curious. We just did a 90s ranking ourselves, me and
did you?
Terry. Yeah, I'll send you the link. It was a
Okay,
lot of
cool.
fun.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
check it out. But favorite rom-com, most underrated favorite rom-com. I'm going that way because there's a lot that people are super aware of. A lot of people don't know about Return to Me, and I think
Yes.
Return to Me is delightful.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I love that one too. And it's always made me dream. My fantasy is to someday go to an Italian Irish restaurant
You
and get
could probably
ravioli
find
with a
one.
side of sauerkraut. That's like my dream.
Doesn't that movie take place in New York? I kind of feel like New York is literally the only place that could happen.
Chicago, I think it's
Is it
Chicago.
Chicago? Okay.
I
Maybe in
think.
Chicago as well, yeah.
Well, very good. Well, today we're talking about All of My Heart, one of the most popular Hallmark movies. And it was so popular that it got this like movement behind it to like, give us a sequel. Because people always want sequels for romantic comedies, but it's almost always a bad idea.
Yes.
Are very few. And that was the case here. The sequels were not great.
Yeah.
And I think that it kind of soured me a little bit on this as a franchise. So it was fun to revisit it and be like, oh, yeah, this was so cute. I see why
Yeah.
people wanted more of it, even though they shouldn't have.
Careful what you wish for. Yeah.
Yes.
Are you familiar with there's an older film series called The Thin Man about a husband and wife
Yeah.
who solve crimes, and
That's a
but see,
fun one.
that works because the sequels are built on the mysteries,
Yeah.
and then their repartee is what gives it the seasoning, right? Whereas with a romantic comedy, it's generally about falling in love, and so in
Yeah.
order to create a sequel, you have to generate drama, quote
Yes.
unquote, to make it interesting. But oftentimes that kind of sours the first little love story,
Yeah.
you know.
So that's
So
it's the problem because you either have to have them break up, which sucks, or you have
right,
to have it be a wedding slash baby movie, which usually also suck.
right,
And so the I mean, I think the in both iterations of Father of the Bride, I think the sequels are pretty good,
yes.
and so I think that that's one.
But those are more rom-com adjacent, don't you think? They're not
Yeah,
quite rom-coms, but they're cut from the same cloth. But yeah, I think that's
because
why
they're
that
about the
works.
dad more.
Yeah, yeah.
And more also rom-com adjacent, but like the before movies,
Hmm.
particularly the first two. The third one is not a comedy hardly at all, but the first two are like mild. But I think that those work pretty well. I mean, I love those movies, don't get me wrong, but as far as sequels, that's one I can think of, but there's just not many. It's bad idea.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I had so we were talking about what we wanted to do. You recommended this one, so I watched it for the first time, and I haven't seen the sequels. It sounds
Yeah,
like I don't want to see the sequels.
you should don't see the sequels.
But
Yes,
this was charming and delightful, and I
yeah.
totally get why people like Hallmark movies. I
Hmm.
think there are some people who look down their noses because Hallmark movies tend to not be especially challenging. But
Yeah,
it's kind of like, you know what? Life is challenging. So
yeah,
I used to when I was younger, before I'd gone through a lot of the things I've gone through now, and before I'd done what I do for a living, which is pretty heavy, the people
yeah.
as a therapist, I used to really enjoy heavy message movies. And now I'm like, I've got enough heavy. messaging going on between the
Yes.
universe and me. Like when I'm watching something, I want to escape and enjoy, and Hallmark really nails that. Some
Yeah.
films better than others, but as a genre, you know.
Yeah, there of course, like any studio, any genre, any network is going to have some that are better than others. That's going to happen. But at the core, I think what makes Hallmark movies in particular, but rom-coms in general work is because they're hopeful. They give you hope and happy endings. They give you hope that good things will happen to people and that people because people do fall in love in this world. People do have good lives. Like
Yeah,
it's not like really that much of a fantasy. Like the elements surrounding it as far as like the meet cutes and stuff like yeah, maybe that's a little fantastical, but people do meet cute in like real life. People
right.
do, like it gives you some hope in a world that could use a lot of hope, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I agree. Well, so yeah, so this All of My Heart, this was made in 2015, which was like kind of a peak, as far as ratings, probably the peak year for Hallmark, maybe
yeah,
2016. And then, obviously streaming is blown up since then, but this was directed by Peter DeLuise, who's like kind of a legend amongst the Hallmark directors. Written by Karen Berger, it stars Lacey Chabert and Brendan Elliott and Ed Asner. And it's after inheriting half of a house, a young woman develops an unexpected friendship with her co-owner. This is so sorry. So you overall enjoyed it, enjoyed the film.
I did. Well, that's here's the thing. Here's the thing about Hallmark movies and romantic comedies in general, and frankly, a lot of movies. But there's always a gimmick, right? There's always some sort of, and that's the thing is we get sucked into the human side of the story, the longing, the loss,
Yeah,
the hurt, the hope, because the plots themselves generally aren't super relatable to our lives is my
no,
is my opinion. But I feel the same way about fantasy movies, right? I look at Lord of the Rings. I can't relate to the plot, but I can sure relate to a lot of the emotions that are going on and a lot of
yeah.
the relationships and the connections. And so when you just read that plot point, I'm like, every Hallmark movie makes me laugh. If you read the plot synopsis, I'm like, here we go.
Yes. Well, and it's so funny because Lacey has had like 4 or 5 movies for Hallmark and others where she's inherited property of one kind or another.
So there's like a whole little thing she's
Yeah.
got going.
People just love giving her
People
her
just want to hand
property.
her homes, yeah.
Yeah. There's a
Well,
movie in Africa where she gets this that's retreat in Africa. Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies. Here, she gets half a house, which I
yeah,
mean, I think he got some major shenanigans going on by this aunt.
I would love to ask her if I ever got a chance to interview her. I would love to ask her. So when you're doing a inherit property movie, do you kind of settle into a groove of I know exactly what I'm doing, or do you think how am I going to make this interesting because I've done this before?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
I mean, I would love to talk to Lacey so much, but yeah, it would be nice to know kind of how she approaches each of these roles that she is in. And she must be like I mean, I'm sure she's absolutely lovely. She seems lovely, but she must be lovely because she gets these coworkers these co-stars who want to keep doing movies with her. Her and
Right.
Brennan have done, I think, 5 or 6 together.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
or 6, I think, because they did some mysteries together. There's one with them and Mariah Carey
Oh,
that's
what? What's
that's
that one
pretty,
called?
yeah. It's called Christmas Melody, and
Okay,
it's pretty legendary.
so at Cinema Therapy, like my co-host and I, Alan and I, we're middle-aged white men raised in the 80s, and so like anime is a younger generation thing to us, right? But a
Right,
lot of our
right.
fans have been throwing anime at us, and there've been
Mm,
quite a few that we've really enjoyed, and so now I'm
yeah.
like starting to get into the genre, and I feel like this movie might have opened a door that may never be
Well, I
closed.
can help you. We I mean,
Because
Christmas Melody is atrocious. It was supposedly was directed by Mariah Carey, but
yeah, oh,
like
okay,
she's almost never in the same scene with anybody else. And I'm like,
yeah,
it's it's really bad, but it
okay.
is pretty entertaining.
Well, and that okay. So I want to ask you a question as a Hallmark fan. How much of because as I'm watching this movie, I found that I could predict everything before it happened,
Yes.
but I wasn't mad about that. It was actually part of
Yeah,
like
it's really interesting because people will say, like, why do you like that rom-com and you don't like this one, or this Hallmark movie and you don't like this one? They're the exact same in their eyes,
uh,
right? And I'm like, no, the chemistry wasn't as good, the banter wasn't as good, the story wasn't as good. All of those things. Yes, the story, if you break it down into your tropes and archetypes, is the same, but all of those other aspects make the world of difference in making something memorable and not as memorable.
yeah. Well, it's kind of like preparing food. Like there are certain dishes that you know what you're gonna get, but the spices or how it's
Yeah,
prepared makes it you know. ma-
exactly.
So yeah. Okay. Another question, because I could see watching this. I could see watching any of these. And have you seen The Christmas Prince? It's like a Netflix version of a Hallmark movie.
Yes. Yes.
That was even more by the numbers. That was like
Yeah.
she's in the forest, and I'm thinking, oh, what if she got attacked by wolves? And then wolves show up. And I felt almost omnipotent. I felt like I could just like dictate to the movie what I wanted to happen next, and it would happen.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I don't say any of this as an insult. I think a lot of times with mainstream films you get annoyed, or at least I get annoyed if it's too predictable. But with Hallmark, that's kind of the idea, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
kind of like a warm blanket. Life is unpredictable. Life is hard. I'm going to settle into this comfort food.
Yeah. And
And
it really is all about the chemistry and the banter.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
if the banter isn't doing it, then the predictability becomes a problem. If
yeah,
it like one thing I'm proud about with Hallmarkies is from the very beginning we have showcased and championed the writers. Our very first interview that we ever did was with one of the writers, and I think as a community, the Hallmarkies, the hardcore fans are way more aware of writers than your typical fan group, certainly for television.
yeah,
And people will be like, oh, this is a Julie Sherman Wolf script, this is this is a Nina Wyman script, and they know. And because that is the biggest factor, like it can have the stupidest plot, and if I'm laughing, if I'm enjoying the banter,
yeah,
then I can even tolerate not amazing chemistry if I'm enjoying the banter and the
yeah.
story and the script. Like, I mean, but those are like the two biggest factors I would say in enjoyment level of a movie is banter, chemistry.
I'm watching this movie and I'm thinking the exact same thing because these two Lacey and Brennan have great chemistry
Yes.
and the banter's well written. And I'm at the very beginning, he's in his suit and he's all uptight and everything, and I'm like, this guy's gonna be in flannel before the end of this movie. And he
Yeah,
was.
it was.
And he was. And and it was lovely though. It's a
Yeah.
lovely little film.
So at the beginning, we have her. She thinks she's going to get proposed to. She's getting all hyped
Hmm.
up by her friend, by the
To
wrong guy of the movie in this rom
Daryl.
com. And yeah, a lot of times the wrong guy is like either like a total bad man of business, and you're like, why is she dating this horrible person, right?
Yeah.
Or they've like done nothing wrong. And you're just like in Sleepless in Seattle is the ultimate example. Like,
Yeah, Bill Pullman's so sweet in that
yeah,
movie.
his like greatest flaw is he has allergies. Like, how dare he? He
I
sneezes a
do like
lot.
it. I do like in Sleepless in Seattle at the end when she goes, "I don't deserve you," and he goes, "Okay,"
Yeah.
he's like, I'm not going to say it, but I'm okay with you saying
Yeah.
it. You know.
Well, I mean, the
So,
best line probably in that movie is when he says, "Marriage is hard enough without beginning it with such low expectations."
oh man, that's so
And that's a great
sad.
line.
It
It's
is
a
a
great
great
line.
line.
I mean, no one could write like Nora Ephron. I mean,
It's true.
unbelievable. Talk about banter. But so she thinks she's getting proposed to, and
Hmm.
this Grayson Holt, he has actually been the lead in a number of Hallmark movies since this. So he's not always the wrong guy, but he's like
Quick
super
tangent. Sorry,
pumped.
sorry to interrupt you, but is that a thing then? Like, do a lot of Hallmark guys get their start as the wrong guy and work their
Yeah.
way up to the right guy?
Well,
Is that a
even
thing?
yes, even Brennan Elliott, and I kind of wish that he would go back to being the wrong guy because Brennan Elliott was hilarious as the wrong guy, and you can
Yeah,
see like little snippets of that here when he's being. You can see how he would make a good bad man of business here,
yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure, for sure.
And there's one called I think Kiss at Pine Lake or something like that. And he's the bad guy. He's the bad evil boss. And he goes out to the forest where they're going to close down this camp or whatever to build condos. It's always to build condos. And he's like, what is all these trees? What?
Oh man, that's great.
So yeah, he's great as the bad man. But yeah, a lot of them do get started in those roles, and then they'll be given a chance and to get a lot of times they'll be given a chance in like one of the competing networks, like the Up
Mm,
TVs or something like that. That Great American Family that they'll be given a chance at a lead in one of those kinds of films.
yeah.
And maybe if it takes off, or maybe then they'll be given like Hallmark is like the I Ching. It's like the big, you've made it in this world.
Oh my
It's
gosh, I love it.
Hallmark. And but yeah, so
And then you hold
Grayson,
on for dear life, yeah.
yeah, he's had the chance to be the lead in a bunch of movies. He was in a really fun one, Cross Country Christmas is called, with Rachel Lee Cook. That was actually quite over the top, and it's like slapstick and stuff like that, which was usually Hallmark doesn't like lean into the humor in that kind of way, but that one they did, and I really enjoyed it. And anyway, he's interesting as the wrong guy in this movie because like he's pretty clueless for a wrong guy. I mean, that he thinks that she's going to be excited. Like, what girlfriend is going to be excited that
Yeah.
you're leaving me to go live in Singapore? Like, and he's
Yeah.
just like, oh, this will be great. We're gonna have a special night out to celebrate the fact I'm moving to Singapore.
Well, and he doesn't like anyone in their right mind would discuss that first. Hey, this was offered to me. Right? This was offered to me. Let's talk about whether or not I should take it or what this means for us. Instead of I took it, I'm leaving
Yeah.
tomorrow, and oh, you're not happy about this?
Yeah, he
That's
thinks that she's going to be like excited, which is delusional.
yeah. And then he tries to put out the fire. Yeah,
Yes.
there's an issue there.
And he's like, our relationship can withstand some time apart. And then she's just like, whoa.
Here's a quick question for you. I think the movie is better than the title. The title feels like it was generated by AI.
That
All of
is
my heart.
true. And
Like
Hallmark titles often are. Sometimes they have nothing to do with the movie at all. Like,
right?
I mean, this one, it should be called like, I don't know, something.
No, I know what it could be
like
called.
Love at the Bread B&B or something like that.
Or warm kitchen hot buns. Like there's so many things you could do.
Yeah.
And
Yes. I mean,
if you watch this movie and then someone says, "Hey, have you seen warm kitchen hot buns?" They would know exactly which Hallmark movie you're talking about. But unless you've got like a great memory for this sort of thing, have you seen All of My Heart? Well, that could be literally any Hallmark movie.
No, that's true. There's this one that you've got to see that's absolutely hilarious. Well, it's very lame, but it's funny. Is called Sharing Christmas, and it was filmed here in Salt Lake, and they try to make Trolley Square be like Manhattan, which is so funny. The way that they
It doesn't
like
work.
prop it and stage it and stuff. It's really funny. But yeah, that movie, Sharing Christmas, it's about supposedly this like amazing magical Christmas store, right? That they're running, and that somebody's going to close down the Christmas store because, of course, they want to build condos. Everyone who wants to build condos, and the and it doesn't have any. There's just like, why isn't it called the Magic Christmas Store, or like it has nothing sharing Christmas? Like what? So yeah, I don't understand the titles. Usually when we get the write-ups early for Christmas, at least, they'll often have an alternate title. Sometimes it's the name of a book or something like that. And those are almost always better than the final title. So go figure.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, All My Heart is very generic. I don't know why they titled it that. It doesn't have really anything to do with the movie, but here we are.
But here we are.
Yes. But yeah, so this wrong guy, I think, is pretty compelling. But I appreciate that Lacey just immediately is like, what? This Jenny, she's like, we are completely different. We are geographically out of sync.
Yeah, and part of that's like a good writing of character, that she is strong and has a backbone for standing up for herself, and part of it is like plot economics. Like, we need to get her to that small town with the house with the guy as fast as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so she doesn't spend a lot of time ruminating over Daryl's curveball. She just says, "Daryl, we're done."
Yep. I'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor of this episode of the podcast. It's the novel The Secret Ingredient by bestselling author Nancy Nagel in a new edition from Harpeth Road Press. Years ago, Kelly McIntyre couldn't see her life getting any sweeter. She was engaged and dreaming of opening a restaurant with her fiancé, Andrew York. But life had other plans for Kelly. Now she's the owner of an adorable pot-bellied pig named Gray, and she also runs her own bakery. Business is good, so good, that she's invited to compete in a Valentine's Day baking competition in New York. As she prepares for the contest, she's feeling confident until she hears that Andrew is back in town. Will they agree on the secret ingredient to happiness, or will they get more than they bargained for? Perfect Valentine's escape that will have you nibbling your favorite chocolates and snuggling up late into the night. If you enjoyed the TV movies based on Nancy's books and are looking for more delightful romance, look no further. You can get The Secret Ingredient at harpethroad.com or by using our affiliate link below. That's harpethroad.com. And so then she finds out that she has inherited this house. And the aunt has this aunt that she didn't really know that has given her this house, and it's also given it to the descendant of her caretaker, and she had originally given it to the caretaker and her mother, Lacey's mother, and
I thought it was Lacey's
was it
aunt's
Lacey's
cousin.
aunt?
Willed it. Yeah, it was a ridiculous thing. It was so funny. I was like, oh,
yeah, but it didn't come to them. Like, they had never met. She didn't even know about this person.
Right, but it was to the caretaker and to her aunt, and then it just went down the line.
Yeah. So it came to them, and they both are there. They get the announcement, and he's just like, what's going on? And Brendan Elliott is the busiest stockbroker in that's ever been in Hallmark movies. Like, I don't have time for this. I don't have time to inherit property. What's going on?
Yeah, he's the Jack Bauer of Hallmark. If you ever got into 24, really, like, he's always out of time. Like, he's always just
yeah,
he's always angry and he's always out of time. And I'm like, this guy's Jack Bauer. He's going to be Jack Bauer in flannel by the end of this movie, but he's Jack Bauer.
Yeah. And here's the thing that I kind of question a little bit about this movie, and I think it's why some of the reason why the sequels didn't work is that they are expecting, I think, Brian to do all the change within the course of the movie. Like, Jenny doesn't really, like, she is the one that loves the house. She's the one that's right. She's the one that's the cook.
Yeah.
Things like that. and he's the one that is expected to completely change his personality, change everything that he
Yes.
likes, change everything. And because they are so charming and because the dialogue the banter is so fun, I'm fine with that. But it's why
Right.
it's why the sequels don't work, because then they have to lean into that for the conflict, and it's just like exposes the main problem of the movie, is that
Yeah.
like he's not a bad dude. There's nothing he's doing that's wrong, and you should never expect the person you're with to completely change who they are.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when he
Well,
talks about wanting to be in business, he talks about since he was like a little kid. He's not unhappy in his work.
yeah. Well, and contrary to what here's a bone I have to pick with Hallmark is being a business person does not make you evil, nor does it mean you are going to have screwed up priorities. There are
Yeah.
business people who have families and they give time to their families and are quite healthy and happy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, and I hadn't thought about that, but you're so true. It's so true. They don't grow together and meet in the middle. Like he has to go, and it's not even like you come 90 and I'll come 10. Like he goes the whole 100,
Yeah.
right? And I imagine that's very affirming, right? If I'm a woman watching this, the notion that I'm already good to go and I just need to find a guy who can see how good to
Yeah.
go I am, and he just needs to rise to my level, and he does by fixing things and wearing flannel and helping birth some goat kids, then
Yes. Yeah, I mean that's what people love, that idea of that's the whole appeal of like Pride and Prejudice, is the idea
yeah. Oh yeah.
that Darcy becomes this new person. By the end, he sacrifices everything for
Yeah.
to make Elizabeth happy, and that's what he cares about. But he's still Darcy. Like he's still, and so in this case, and I think it is true that certain experiences can radically change you,
Yeah.
and he experiences something totally different. He's like, wow, this, I really enjoyed this much more than I thought. And again, it's so charming and they work so well together that I'm fine with it. But I do kind of wish that they both had sort of an existential experience with
Yeah.
this house and this, everything, because I think that would
So,
make it even better.
some flaws would have made her more interesting. I
Yeah.
think honestly, Lacey elevates what she's given with
Yes.
her natural charm because on paper it's not that great of a character,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
she's great. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of like, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
good point.
And she's a miracle worker in this movie because she manages to make croissants without a speck of flour
Yeah. Oh
in the
my
kitchen
gosh.
at all.
So
That's
he's
very impressive.
he's lost his job. Of course it's not his fault, you
Yes,
know.
he because at first he's like, I have no interest in this house, and then he makes some kind of bad trade or something happens. He loses the job. He shows up. He is a dejected creature. He's got his tie undone. He's like
Yeah.
a mess.
You
A
know,
mess.
somebody on the crew before he went on camera majorly ruffled his hair, like he's been in the car just like doing this all the whole drive. Yeah, he looks like he stuck his finger in an outlet a little bit, is
Mhm.
what he looks like in a
Yeah.
cartoon. But it's great. And
Yeah.
well, and I like when he before that he totally is on board with, well, the house means a lot to her. Sure, I wanted to sell it, but it doesn't mean as much to me. Like you see, there's a soft heart there.
Mhm.
He's not a jerk. He just has the wrong priorities, right?
Yeah.
Which is a big Hallmark trope. I don't even watch Hallmark movies yet. This is my first one, and I already know. My understanding is this is something of a gender bender because it's the guy who moves from the big city to the small town
Yeah,
and is
it's true.
changed, right? Usually, isn't it? It's usually the woman, right?
Yeah, 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 that's true. Well, and
Okay.
is very funny because it starts out where he's allergic to the goats and he's like sneezing and stuff, and by the end
Right.
he's like carrying them around. They're ready to take like
Yeah, her love cured his allergies. It's
yes,
amazing.
yes,
If only Meg Ryan could have done that for Bill Pullman.
yeah, that's exactly,
They could have had a shot.
yes. And he says, "I belong in Wall Street, not Main Street."
Yeah, it's a decent line for his character.
Yeah,
I hadn't stopped to think about it though. He has allergies for one scene.
yeah,
Why even have that scene in there?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I
What do you think of some of the secondary characters? So you got like Tommy.
Oh
in
yeah.
and you have Casey that are in that are in the town. She's running the diner. He's
Yeah.
running the repair shop or whatever. They were kind of fun, I thought.
So not trying to pick up plot holes, but Casey says all of the men with a paycheck and a pulse or whatever she says are taken. But then Tommy is saying women are hard to figure out. Now, did Tommy have a ring on? Like, why don't Tommy and Casey get
Yeah,
together?
well,
Do they,
that is
do they in the
probably
sequels?
the sequels.
Okay, well,
There was something there. Yeah, no, it's true. You're like
okay, fair enough.
looking around. But yeah, and then you have of course Ed Asner
Okay, so
playing
hang on,
Vern.
really fast. Tommy, I could see Tommy being like the wiser, gentler older brother of Luke from Gilmore Girls.
Yes, I can see
You
that too.
know,
Yeah.
I could see him being like, "Come on, Luke, stop being such a jerk." But like he feels like he comes from the same family,
Yeah.
except for Tommy's. I'm only on season 2 of Gilmore Girls right now, so I don't know what happens. But I'm watching, and I'm like, Tommy feels like if Luke really got his act together.
Yeah.
And but you know, he's. I'm thinking he's tall and he's handsome and he gives good advice, and I think he's literally here to move the plot along and to be
Hmm.
attractive, and he
Yeah.
serves that well.
Yeah, and he gets some pretty funny little lines, banter going
He
on.
does.
That
He does.
he only answers in monosyllables.
Yes. He does. He's a little bit of a grunter. You know who
Yeah.
he is? I know. I can tell you exactly who Tommy is. You do a genetic hybrid of Luke from Gilmore Girls and John Cena, and you've
Okay.
got Tommy.
I can see that. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yes.
then Casey, you know, uh, I like her bit towards the end when she talks about being inspired to make her own happily ever after. I thought that was a beautiful
Hmm.
touch.
And she says
Um,
if they have a paycheck and a pulse, they're taken. That may not technically be true, but sometimes it feels true.
yeah, sure,
As a
sure,
single woman, it feels true.
sure. Um, here's no Casey's, but I here's the thing. I feel like this entire movie is elevated by the cast.
Yeah.
I feel like it's elevated by the cast and the chemistry, like and the dialogue. It kind of
Yeah.
feels like I'm making some weird pulls here, but there are James Bond movies or like James Bond movies are full of tropes, right? And unhealthy
Yeah.
relationships, generally speaking, and misogyny. But if you look past all that, they're really fun. And, and but James Bond movies, like you get like a lot of the same things every time. So it's like that's all established, and now we can play around with the details, and now we can play around with the characters and create memorable differences in that way.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what this felt like to me.
Well, and it's also it's I mean it's kind of I forgot to write down where in like Connecticut I think this house is supposed to be, or Maine
Yeah.
or someplace like that. Anyway, as if like 90% of people who work on Wall Street don't also have a country house in Connecticut.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Like
all right
they,
there.
they they put it in this like dichotomy, like you have to choose. Like
It's one or the other.
you either have to choose city life or country life. You either have to
Yeah.
decide to be a good person or not. And what are you gonna do? And
It's like,
and but there's such fun lines, like when he's like, I don't know if I sprained something, maybe my ego, like lines like
yeah,
that. Those are just
yeah.
fun lines. And I like that they choose the non-competitive seafoam mint.
Oh yeah, that was great. And then he's like, "I'll go see if they have it," just very
Yeah.
dryly, because obviously they don't have non-competitive seafoam mint.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
no,
the whole thing with him fixing the faucet, and it ends up having that noise, and that becomes endearing.
yeah,
That becomes, oh, that's him trying his hardest. So that's very sweet, I think.
perfectly imperfect.
Yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
I know that I would have less success even in making that repair. So way to go,
Oh my
Brian.
gosh. Yeah. No, listen. I would never be I'm completely at home that I will never be the Hallmark hunk who fixes a bunch of stuff. Like I've got a repairman. I have his number.
Like, and his attempt to fix the table cracks me up.
Yeah.
By the time they're done, it's going to be like a foot long. It's not even going to be like a table. It'll be like maybe a something for a like a living room kind of a thing.
Yeah, we're going to be sitting on the floor.
Yeah.
The paint fight was super cute.
Yeah, that's very cute.
Yeah. I thought Ed Asner was Ed Asner. You cast Ed Asner, you get that personality, and he's warm and loving and sweet and kind of curmudgeon-y and kind of a grump.
Yeah. I mean, he's basically like Carl from Up.
Yeah.
Also Ed Asner in real life.
It's like if Carl never went to Paradise Falls and he just decided to hang out in front of a general store.
Yeah.
You know? I do feel like he has one really, one big scene where he talks about the previous owner of the house. And beyond that, he's just there kind of for one-liners. And you know what? Maybe at that stage, at that age, like that's what he was up for, is basically a glorified cameo. I just wanted more of him. Honestly, like all joking aside, like I can make little digs at the film that are affectionate digs. I don't really have problems with these things. My only real issue with the film is that I would have liked more Ed Asner.
I agree. It could have been fun to see him, like maybe because you have Barbara Pollard playing Alice, who brings her over some jam and stuff. Like maybe you could have had something with the two of them, like maybe doing something together. Or I could have seen that too. I think that would have been fun. The secondary characters are all really strong in this movie, and that definitely boosts a Hallmark movie. Is when you have good leads, but also really good secondary characters.
Well, I'm looking at the IMDb right now. Paul McGillian he's just called chef owner, and I'm sitting here going, "Oh, he didn't even have a name." He's a
big jerk in the movie.
Yeah, well, he's a big jerk. I love the scene where he's sweet to her when she's trying to leave, and she's like, "That's not." I don't remember exactly how she phrased it, but that's not cool. That's not fair. What? Making me miss you, right? Because he's been a jerk for so long, and then at the very end, he's really sweet to her.
Yeah,
it reminds me of this great bit in The Office where Michael unintentionally says something rude and humiliates Pam, and she walks away with her feelings hurt.
Yeah.
And then Michael looks at the person he was talking to and he says, "Actually, and I would never tell her this, but she is such a talented worker, and I don't know, and she's such a talented worker and sweet person, and I don't know what we would do without her." And Oscar says, "Why wouldn't you say that to her face?"
It's true.
It reminds me of this boss. Like, he has all these sweet feelings, but he doesn't say them, until it's like, "Oh, there's my last chance." But,
It's true. Well, so she calls Daryl at one point. She says, "I left my truffle cutter at the restaurant, and will you go and get my truffle cutter?" Because she's been making a lot of truffles in this B&B.
Got to be ready for the truffles.
Ready. And so then Daryl's like feeling kind of bad about it, regretting, and he comes and brings her a truffle cutter, but it's not her truffle cutter. So that's a fail.
Yeah, well, he gets her a new one because he wanted to see her, right?
Yeah. I just wanted an excuse to come see you.
Yeah.
And so she's starting to get interested in Brian at this point. Things are increasing, and they have a near kiss. 2 near kisses, actually.
2 near kisses and so many. I mean, it's Hallmark, so it's not bedroom eyes. What is it like? Let's go for a walk and hold hands eyes. But so many.
And these near kisses aren't too bad. Yeah, sometimes they drive me crazy when it's just like nonsensical. It's like nobody would answer the phone at that point. Nobody would, then they make it. I forget what it is that interrupts them in this. I think it might be somebody at the door. I can't remember, but then they have they have so many flirty scenes, which are really fun. Like with the when they're sandpapering the pantry.
Yeah.
They've got all the
Yeah. Yeah. And they're both really good at the long awkward pauses with
yeah.
the furtive glances and the little sly smiles and I want to look into your eyes. Oh, I looked a little too long. I got to look away awkwardly. Like they play that all really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he tells her, I was always interested in investing even as a kid. So that's why I say like they're really expecting him to completely change who he is as a foundation human being.
Yeah.
Is in this movie. And you get a great scene where it's literally raining in their rooms, both their rooms, and then we get an actual kiss, which is pretty rare in a Hallmark movie to have a middle movie kiss. A lot of times it's just the near kiss. And so, that's really fun. I'm feeling it big time.
Yeah. Well, then he says, I'm sorry. She says, it's okay. And then he says, I'm going to go check on the kids. And I'm sitting there, I'm a little bit like, hey, she kissed you back. Just like live in the moment, man. You're good.
But it's cute, kind of endearing.
It is.
It's kind of endearing.
It is.
Yeah. And so then, of course, after we've had this, they've kissed. This is so exciting. The next morning, his friend calls and says, hey, I've got a job for you.
Yeah. Your name was Mud, but I went to bat for you.
Mm-hmm.
And on the exact same day that Daryl comes back and he's gonna shoot his shot and propose, and I was sitting here going, I was literally, and again, this is not a knock on the film. This is a testament to we watch them because we like the comfortable predictability.
Yeah.
I was like, they just kissed. He says, I want to talk about what happened last night. She says, can we talk about it when I get back? Because I have to do all these things.
Yes.
And which I thought was a bit contrived. Like,
because she's going to like pitch her baked goods to all these places.
Yeah, but she had time to meet up with Daryl. So my point is, but you have to have. I'm like, we got 20 minutes left. Things have got to go really bad before they go really good, right?
Yes. So he says, I don't know about the job. I'm really happy here. And the friend is like, kind of rightfully so. The friend's like, what? This is all you've ever wanted. I didn't think that you would say no, but he doesn't realize how much this has changed him, which sometimes happens. And so then he goes, he's all pumped because he's just rejected this job. He goes and Daryl has shown up and he sees Lacey and he sees Jenny and Daryl talking, hugging, and Daryl kisses her, and he proposes, and she says no, but of course Brian doesn't realize that she said no. Yeah. And especially when he sees him, it's like a goodbye kiss. It's not like a kiss, but he thinks it's like a kiss. He thinks she's engaged, and so he's all upset.
Yeah. So I'm taking the job after all.
Yes. This whole thing was a lie.
Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so fun. You have to spice it up towards the end because you need to go low so you can go high, right? And so
were you even going to say goodbye?
I waited all day.
Yeah, I've been waiting all day, Jenny, and couldn't wait any longer.
And then she looks all sad and just kind of lets him go. It's I thought that was a very believable moment of I'm so gobsmacked by what's happening that I can't even think of what I want to say or do. Because I guarantee he gets in that cab and 10 minutes later she's like, well, this is what I should have said, or these are the questions I have, or these are, And as a couples therapist, I always watch this and like, so many of this could just be resolved if they would just communicate,
Yeah. Well, I tell you one thing, that this movie likes scones a lot more than I do. I mean, she is able to bribe that inspector with her delicious cheese. I think it's cheese scones.
Yeah.
And scones are awful. I'm sorry. They're usually really dry and not that good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I've had some really tasty ones, usually from Great Harvest. But yeah. This episode of Hallmark is brought to you by Great Harvest. Order today.
Please. I mean, Jenny's scones evidently are life-changing.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
And Great Harvest did not endorse this message, guys, just so you know. They're not involved.
We're available.
Yeah, send the scones.
Yeah.
They should send you the scones, and you could be like, I wasn't a scone person, and then I tried these.
Yes. Yes.
So soft and moist. So, of course, she does what she did earlier in the movie with Daryl, which is she calls, and then instead of actually speaking her feelings, she just says, "Oh," and then she makes it about the house, right?
Yeah. So then this is Ed Asner's cream moment at this point. This is where he gets his payoff, and he says that some ducks were never meant to fly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then he says that he knew Emily, and that she would want them to be happy, and she would want them that she was a wonderful person. And it's sad when people who ought to be together aren't together.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, it was his time to shine, and it was crucial.
Yeah.
Right. And then Brendan comes back because he wants to quote unquote sign the paperwork and see her Airbnb open house, but really he's decided. Here's the thing. I'm not 100% sure if he's decided to come and tell her how he feels. And I like the scene between him and Casey in the diner.
Yeah.
I kind of want a rom-com where the person without a secondary character saying, "Hey, there was a big misunderstanding, and the person actually loves you." I would love for the original person just to kind of be an adult and say, "You know what? I'm just gonna put myself out there and share what I'm feeling." And I'm not saying it's never happened. And now that we're having the conversation, I know it feels like I'm picking all this apart, but I'm not. Like, I really enjoyed the film. Yeah. I'm just sitting here as a therapist. I can't help it.
Yeah. No, I agree. And so she offers to buy the house in installments, and he's like a changed man because he's taking Fridays off now. You're taking Fridays off now?
Yeah, it's big time.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like you're saying earlier about how business people are portrayed. I was thinking when you were talking about how most people on Wall Street have a country home somewhere. It's kind of like saying you can either be in Manhattan or the Hamptons, but not both. It's this whole false dichotomy.
Right.
But yeah, so he's taking Fridays off now, which he wasn't.
Yeah.
Which he wasn't. He just decided to take one.
Mm-hmm. But he's miserable. He can't sleep. He's tossing and turning. It's bad.
Yeah.
He's just missing his goats. He's missing Jenny. It's bad. and
it's so relatable. We've all been there, folks.
And this is where I actually really enjoyed Harry, his friend. He was a good buddy, character, friend. You always have the BFFs in rom-coms. He was good. I like Patrick Sabonier, the actor. He's also been leads now of Hallmark movies. We had him on the podcast, and he was funny. And I just liked that he was like, he was like, take my car, get it, go,
get this out of your
leave.
System. Yeah,
and he's like, get it out of your system. You're driving me crazy.
Here's a minor plot hole, just because they have to wrap it up. Is like a couple scenes later, they're at when Brian proposes to Jenny. Harry is there at the open house, and it's very clear Harry's going to stay in the small town and not go back to Wall Street. And we missed that conversation because we go from Harry saying "get it out of your system" to "hey, I'm happy for you, pal." Yeah. And I'm like, there needed to be something in between.
Yeah, I can see that. But he was still for the guy BFF, he was pretty good.
Oh yeah,
I think
he was very non-toxic, which is the most you can hope for a guy BFF.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he's talking to Casey at the restaurant, and she's like, "Man, you stupid man." She's like, she's in love with you. She turned him down, turned Daryl down, and he's, what? I can't believe it. You're making me the happiest man in the world. Oh, adorable.
It's very
endearing,
sweet.
Very endearing. And then he says, "You're making me." He says, "I missed you, Jenny. I want to come home." You called it home.
This is the first time you ever called it home. This is the first place I've ever wanted to call home, or I've ever felt like was a home.
Yeah, so cute.
Yeah. And then they go inside together with their goats.
Yes, and he proposes, which there's sometimes in Hallmark movie there's this like debate about, do you end the movie on a proposal or even saying "I love you"? Like, because this is a pretty fast relationship.
Yep.
but I'm fine with it because I think sometimes and they had been through
Yeah.
a lot, even if it was a short time. I'm fine with it.
Yeah. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Especially because they had taken the time to see each other in a variety of contexts and to
Yes.
really get to know each other.
Yeah.
Uh, and they've been living together Hallmark style, separate rooms, no hanky panky. But
Yeah.
they've been, they've been living together and they've had plenty of time to actually have the
Yeah.
meaningful conversations and to,
Yeah.
you know, so I'm
Yeah.
on board, at
Yes.
least for the movie.
Yes. And then her old boss is there, and he's all saying that you have a restaurant with beds. This is gonna be a great hit.
Yeah,
And
he's sweet at the end too.
yeah,
Everyone's got to be everyone comes around, their hearts are warmed.
yes.
They learned a little bit
And
of vulnerability.
he and then there's the proposal, and like we said, and he says it's his half and her half, and now we are one,
Yeah.
which is
It's
adorable.
I know, come on. Well, these are the same people who brought us the cards, so it
Yes.
makes sense.
Yeah. It's so cute. It's a really cute movie. And Lacey and Brennan are absolutely outstanding in it. I love them. And it does have some heart to it, some change in their characters. The whole thing with Emily and this gift that Emily given them, and just all that stuff. It all makes it a very enjoyable experience to watch.
Yeah. Yep, 2 thumbs up for me.
Yay. Me too. Yeah, we
Yeah.
do frowns, and I would give this one, I mean, I like when I'm comparing it with other Hallmark movies, right? Not with like feature films. When I'm comparing it with other Hallmark movies, I'd give this the full five crowns.
Five
Full score.
crowns.
Yeah, I mean, this is
Yeah.
this is what it is. This is what the genre is. It is. They did it. Way to go.
I'm
I
I'm
mean,
gonna go
what
ahead
more
and
do
give
you
it five
want? I
scones.
mean, come on, maybe 4.75 if I'm nitpicking. But this is really strong for this kind of, I think, for this kind of film.
I'm gonna give it 5 scones.
My scones.
Yeah.
Yes. Jenny scones.
I'm gonna give 5 Jenny scones.
Yeah.
Not crummy, dried up scones that you get elsewhere.
Yeah.
The ones that only Jenny can make. And
Yeah.
Great Harvest.
Well, very good. Let us know if you're listening what you think of All of My Heart, and maybe you like the sequels more than I do. So I would love to hear that in the comments. And so, John, thank you so much for coming on. This was a real treat. I hope you come back again.
Thank you.
And so tell people where they can find you on social media and also your channel.
I've got 2 YouTube channels, Cinema Therapy and Mended Light. And yeah, that's the best place to find the content that I put out there. Hey, quick question. What is the sequel called? Is it called Even More of My Heart? What is it called?
It's called All of My Heart, in Love.
Okay.
And then I forget what the third one, it's All of My Heart Wedding or something like that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Yes, happy Valentine's. I'd like to thank Jonathan for coming on the podcast. This was really fun. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. And put your comments and thoughts in the comment section or on Twitter. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. Also, make sure you're following the podcast at Hallmarkies Pod, Hallmarkies Podcast, all over social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps us a lot. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We'd appreciate that so much. Also have our Patreon group, which is the biggest way you can support us. And we have a merch store where I think we have All of My Heart merch. So check that out. And we have lots of Valentine's merch. So wish you all very, very happy Valentine's, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.